Have you ever seen a movie where, after much deliberation, you said to yourself, that was a perfect movie? You know, here on the internet, we like to rate things with numbers, out of 10. The internet loves numbers. A movie can't just be good or bad or the dreaded, It has to be on a scale of 1 to 10. So have you ever seen a movie that you would consider a perfect 10 out of 10?
10 out of 10!
What makes a movie 10 out of 10? Do there exist 10 out of 10 movies? There's no right answer, obviously, because entertainment is subjective. What I find entertaining, you may find boring, or vice versa. For example, I thought Birdman was excellent, but I've spoken to a lot of people who absolutely hated that movie. So in a technical sense, no film is a 10 out of 10 because nothing is perfect. Even the most well-respected movies have flaws. Is that the director's reflection in The Godfather? That's ridiculous! I give it a 2 out of 10! So then the question becomes, what makes a film 10 out of 10 through the eyes of the beholder? I'll tell you why I'm making this video, what sparked this conversation. A friend and I were talking about the movie Fences. If you've seen my review of that movie, you'll know that I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. My friend gave it a 9.5 out of 10. That's almost perfect. That's 0.5 points away from being among the greatest films ever made. What did Fences do for my friend that it didn't do for me? What bumped it up 2 points for him? Well, first, it's important to talk about the flawed rating system of 10 points. 10 is just a psychologically satisfying number, but in reality it has no real difference than 13 or 47. Except, you know, they're different numbers. But there's nothing about 10 that makes it final like we like to think it is. Sometimes I like to use Patrice O'Neal's approach to rating women.
We usually go 1 to 10 when guys are going, hey, explaining a hot girl. Hey,
Right.
1 to 10, what you give her, man? Ooh, she's like a 9. Well, we went up to 30. Okay, me and my friends went up to from 1 to 30. Okay. And what we did is break that 30 down into 3 categories of 10. The first 10 is ugly bitches, the second 10 is okay looking bitches, and the third 10 is beautiful bitches. So a number 20 is either a beautiful okay looking woman or a ugly fine woman.
If this seems like it doesn't make sense, you obviously don't follow the cult of Black Phillip. Maybe we should rate movies this way. In this regard, I would consider Independence Day a 12 out of 10. It's a really good, shitty movie. A film like Les Miserables would maybe be a 17. It has the embodiment of what a great movie should be, but it falls short. A film like Yoga Hosers would be a 0 out of 30. But that still leaves us with the question, what makes a 30 out of 30, a 10 out of 10, a flawless movie? Okay, here's how I see it. Everything about the movie needs to work for what the movie is trying to get across. Every single quality needs to go above and beyond. This is why I gave Fences a 7.5 out of 10. Yes, it has good dialogue, a good story, and great acting. But what else does it have to offer? Does it have great cinematography, great editing, great sound design, great lighting? Some may call it nitpicking, but there's a reason these classic movies are considered classic. It's not just because they're cool and Sam Jackson says motherfucker in a really cool way. It's because every detail was thought about and perfected. A 10 out of 10 movie has to have excellent everything. I'm not saying that every single movie has to be edited like La La Land or have the special effects of Lord of the Rings. The fine details within the film should be structured around what the film is trying to say. Memento is structured in a way where it forces the viewer into the world of the main character, who has short-term memory loss. WALL-E is framed like this in order to convey loneliness. On the flip side, Battlefield Earth tries to use different framing techniques even though the filmmakers don't understand why. Almost the entire film is shot at a weird Dutch angle, but there's no reason for it. If there's intent and reasons into the filmmaker's decision which translate well into cinema, then maybe they're doing something right. Like maybe there's a reason the camera tracks away from Robert De Niro during his embarrassing phone call in Taxi Driver. Maybe there's a reason Norman Bates is lit this way. Maybe there's a reason Yoga Hosers sucks dick. I will say, however, that this can go too far. There are films out there where it's very clear that the director is trying very, very hard just to be different. I feel like the audience can kind of tell. When determining a 10 out of 10 movie, every aspect should have its own rating system. Like, I would give the lighting and hustle and flow a 10 out of 10, a greatly lit movie. I would give Shin Godzilla a 10 out of 10 in cinematography. I would give Ghost Rider a 3 out of 10 in writing, but a 7 out of 10 in color grading. I would give Black Mass a 9 out of 10 in acting, but a 5 out of 10 in pacing. Okay, so your movie has great lighting, great cinematography, some knockout performances all around, excellent directing, and great editing. That's a 10 out of 10, right?
Wrong!
Think of a film like Black Mass. I talk about this film a lot because it fascinates me. Black Mass kinda has all of this. Every actor in this film is great. You have some solid cinematography that complements the eerie nature of the entire film. The editing isn't great, but it's exactly what it's supposed to be in a film like this. The story is super interesting, the music is nice, and it's a nice film to look at. So what's wrong with it? Why is it still a 7 out of 10 at best? Black Mass is a perfect example of a film that just doesn't take that extra step. Maybe it's because the scenes don't really tie together to form a classic narrative arc, which can be okay, but it doesn't work in this film. Maybe the character's struggles aren't engaging enough. Whatever the case, it lacks, and that's why it virtually came and went like a fart in the wind. Like, yeah, it was technically well made, okay, cool. You got everything going for you, now show us what you got. Some films just can't do this. One thing I want to say is that there's a difference between a 10 out of 10 movie and your favorite movie. For example, my favorite movie of all time is Back to the Future. Would I give it a 10 out of 10? No, I'd probably give it about a 9. Just because I really love it doesn't mean it's flawless. I personally see past the flaws, whereas a film like The Godfather is technically a 10 out of 10 just by its sheer existence. I can acknowledge how great it is, but it's not one of my favorites. Put The Godfather and Back to the Future playing at the same time on TV, and I'd go to Back to the Future. So, what do I consider a 10 out of 10 movie? I have a few examples. Goodfellas. Every scene in this film is a slam dunk. It's 2.5 hours and yet somehow never boring. It's a crime drama mob film, but it manages to be one of the funniest movies I've ever seen in my entire life.
Hey, what's that movie that Bogart made?
Which one?
The one where he played a cowboy. Only the one.
The Oklahoma Kid.
Shane?
Oklahoma Kid. Shane. Oklahoma Kid. That's me. I'm the Oklahoma Kid.
The cinematography is used to better advance the story and to convey emotions, not just to say, look how avant-garde we are! Notice how the background is getting larger as this scene transcends. That's to convey the tension in them being together in this moment. What's with this long take is to show how made Henry currently has it and how respected he is. The acting is phenomenal on everyone's part. The writing is absolutely genius. The whole movie grabs a hold of you and never lets go, unlike any other movie I've ever seen. In my eyes, Goodfellas is a perfect film. The Social Network. Excellent writing, pacing, directing, acting, cinematography, color grading, everything about this movie just works. Even the sound design. It's clear that there was genuine thought and care put into this film. Just watch the behind the scenes. It challenges who you side with, showing that not everything is so black and white, as this real life situation wasn't. There was no clear good or bad guy, this is just what happened. In my eyes, The Social Network is a perfect film. Empire Strikes Back. I've already went on and on about how much I love this movie, and it's not just because I'm a Star Wars dork. Some of it is, but it's hard not to love this movie. Empire is thrown up a few points because even though it's a science fiction film, a medium that's usually seen as silly and childish, it's treated with respect and smart techniques. It's not just a fancy-looking space battle, it's also an internal war. It's also one of the smartest told stories I've ever seen put to film. I think Empire Strikes Back is a perfect film. Now, it goes without saying that people disagree. There are people watching right now who probably hate all three of those movies, and they have their own reasons for disliking them, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when I think of what it means to be a 10 out of 10 movie, those three are just some that I can think of that come close to being without mistake. Then there are those films that come very, very close to being 10 out of 10, but fall just short. I loved Birdman, but I would give it a 9 out of 10. I thought it was a little pretentious, some scenes went nowhere, and the second act was slow. Wall-E was an absolute delight, one of my favorite movies, but I would give it a 9 out of 10. The last act kind of whooshed by, and the whole Save the Trees message was really hammered in. If you can think of a significant aspect about a movie that makes you think, I didn't like how they did that, then it's not a 10 out of 10. Citizen Kane, Whiplash, Ed Wood, The Truman Show, Jaws, these are all films that I can't think of a single error. And if I can, it's usually very little, like an edit that was too quick or a weird line read. I took this to Facebook to see what other people had to say on the matter, and here are the responses I got. The most overwhelmingly popular film which was mentioned was Jaws, but I also got a wide array of other films like Halloween, The Avengers, Forrest Gump, Titanic, John Carpenter's The Thing, E.T., and Bronx Tale, among others. I also asked what makes a perfect film perfect. Some responses I got were storyline plus great cinematography plus great soundtrack. A movie needs to have rawness in a sense, something to sink the heart of the audience. A perfect movie isn't necessarily a good or great movie. Grown Ups 2 is exactly what it wants to be. The director's script and cast had an idea and conveyed it. The execution of Grown Ups 2 is not what's wrong with it. If a movie does what it set out to do, then it's a perfect movie. Some pretty interesting responses. Then I took the question to Reddit, specifically the movie subreddit, where it garnered a pretty large discussion. Here's an accurate representation of what it looked like. I tried to get a rough count of certain movies that were mentioned, so here goes. The Godfather was mentioned 23 times, La La Land was about 17, Goodfellas was 15, Jaws was also 15, Alien and Aliens was mentioned about 14 times, Interstellar was about 7, Citizen Kane was 6, Lord of the Rings was only mentioned 3 times, but it was the highest rated response, followed by There Will Be Blood, then Saving Private Ryan, then Silence of the Lambs. I found out about a lot of films that I have previously never heard of, which I will definitely be adding to my list. Then I got some pretty enlightening responses about what makes a perfect movie. User Janiqua said, "To me, a 10 out of 10 film doesn't literally mean it's flawless. It means it achieved exactly what it set out to do and then some. It went above and beyond to execute their ideas. This is why I could give Interstellar, for example, a 10 out of 10, even though it had obvious flaws and issues." User Juan Prada said, "I personally don't believe flawless movies exist, simply because they're made by humans and we're not flawless. I guess I could say that if a movie made me feel what it was supposed to make me feel, through the acting, the cinematography, the music, or whatever, then it's good for me. Anyway, we all look at different things when we consume art, so my idea of a perfect 10 out of 10 movie might be different from yours, and that's okay." To which user PointMan528491 said, "I essentially use a rating system as a gauge of how enthusiastic I am about a movie based on how well I thought it executed its genre. Did a horror movie keep me constantly scared or unnerved? Did a comedy keep me laughing and having a good time? Was I invested in the action and characters in an adventure movie? Did a drama make me feel emotional? Etc. The ones that do that are 10 out of 10 movies to me, even if they have flaws in terms of actual filmmaking." User Marcelo_ said, "With film being one of the most subjective art mediums, my ratings are strictly for myself, as I think it's impossible for everyone to feel the same way about a film as the person metaphorically sitting next to you. That being said, I think there are 2 kinds of perfect films, those pertaining to entertainment and those pertaining to art. For example, I believe Risky Business is a perfect film in the entertainment department, and Come and See to be a perfect film in the art department. To be clear, a 5-star is a 5-star. I don't label one 5E and the other 5A, as there is art in entertainment and vice versa." Lastly, Uber Taco had this to say, "I think for a movie to be perfect, the first thing is a character's relationship and character arc. The main characters have to be believable and fully developed. They have to stay true to their characters and not do random things for the sake of the plot. The plot also has to feel natural to the narrative arc, like you're watching life and the plot happens. So no elements that pop up too jarringly in the service of a plot. Obviously there have to be some out of the ordinary occurrences, or you're just watching life happen, or you're watching Patterson. Beyond that, a 10 out of 10 movie should offer moments, scenes, conversations, or events that you keep mulling over and revisiting. Maybe they shake up your worldview or consider an aspect of human behavior that you never considered. Or maybe the characters are so rich and complex that you keep replaying their narratives to consider them further, and that compels another viewing. Add to that some real attention to setting, great score and music, great cinematography, great editing, great casting and acting, and then you've got a real 10 out of 10. Bicycle Thieves is my 10 out of 10. Can't think of a note that hits me wrong throughout. A lot of others come close, but that's my top for now." So in conclusion, go watch your favorite movie again, and ask yourself, is this film perfect? What makes this film perfect? Can you look past its flaws? This is a subject that is merely based around opinion, so obviously there's no clear answer, but I hope to stir some discussion about some of our most beloved movies. Next time you're with a group of friends, ask them what they consider to be a 10 out of 10 film. It's a great conversation. What are your opinions? Leave them in the comments. Make sure you subscribe and look out for my next video, Why Yoga Hosers is Secretly a Cinematic Masterpiece Gone Sexual.